ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. A big shout out to our producer today, Jacob. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm so glad you're here.
Of course. How's it going, Erica?
I'm doing well. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. We had a pretty small group, just about 14 or 15 of us, and it was the first one with my wife as a married couple. So, we're looking forward to Christmas in Florida now. But our little Thanksgiving in Seattle was perfect.
Good. And did you eat too much?
Yes, I'm still recovering. I could go for the third nap of the day at this point.
Well, and that is just what this episode is about. It's about eating, more specifically, mindful eating. But first, what is mindfulness? And that could be an episode all to itself. And actually, if you look in the archives, I think I did a whole episode on mindfulness. But in short, mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, right? To be in the now, aware of where we are and what we are doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. And while mindfulness, everybody possesses it, it's really more readily available on the tip of your tongue, so to say, when we practice it daily. And so whether or not you're bringing awareness to what you're doing, what your experiences are through your senses, your state of mind, your thoughts, your emotions, you always want to try to be mindful. And I think of the little meme out there that has a man sitting on a bench and he's got all these thoughts around him in the bubble. And then there's a dog next to him that's just thinking about his master right there. And that's what it's about, being present in the moment. And today, my guest, Linda Tanner, and I would like to focus on mindful eating during the holidays and beyond, specifically because we always tend to eat too much, probably from Halloween through the new year. There is so much food around us. And I want to tell you a little bit about Linda first. She's been on the show before, and I'm so glad to have her back. She's a certified personal trainer with a passion for fitness, nutrition, and how each support us in living our best lives. She provides one-on-one group fitness training, nutrition coaching, and ongoing motivation and support for all of your fitness journey. Consistency, empowerment, and results are the hallmark of her compassionate approach to fitness training, and I can personally attest to that. I've been her client for, 2 years, just about now, and I love working with her. So Linda, thank you so much for being on the show with us again today.
Thank you, Erica. I'm so excited to be here again, and I love working out with you. And yes, you were one of my very first clients. You've been there since the very beginning. So appreciate your support and supporting me and doing what I'm so passionate about.
And nutrition is a big part of your personal training program because, as I said in the intro, they're tied together.
Yeah.
So why do we eat without thinking, and why should we try to avoid it?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I think that, to sort of understand, why and how to avoid overeating during the holidays is to sort of step back and say, why do we do it in the first place, right? And so, there's several reasons, really. One is that it's a season of celebration in so many ways. And so we do have this basic human need to celebrate. Hey, we made it, to the holidays. We had a really tough year. And part of celebrating and socializing is food. Also, this time of the year, there can be a lot of stress, and that can be sort of negative stress like all of the expectations of the holidays. Some of those we put on ourselves, like I need to make this the best Christmas ever for my family, right? And some of it is positive stress, like you maybe have more events on your social calendar. And then also, though, to your point about mindset and being mindful. So one of the mindsets that's very common and popular in our culture is, hey, it's the holiday season, it's the eating season. And so we sort of come up with this mindset that we start eating at Halloween and we don't stop until New Year's. And so that we need to kind of work against that mindset.
Yeah. And I mean, personally too, I know I start lately, I've noticed, because my son's gone and with both my parents passed away, we don't do all of our normal things that we used to do. And I get bored. And so I'm like, nothing to do. Maybe I'll make something. Oh, what's in the fridge? You know, I just was there 5 minutes ago, but something else could have popped in there. It's funny is that how we do get in our own minds about why we're eating. Oh, there's nothing else to do. Or let's go out to eat because there's nothing else to do. Or it all seems to center around the food, right? And maybe instead of the games, the activity, the whatever it might be. So this may sound like a silly question, but why do we want to avoid holiday overeating?
Well, it's a great question. Actually, it's not silly at all. There's a lot of reasons to avoid it. You know, on the one hand, you don't want to like put so much pressure on yourself of like, you know, I'm going to eat perfectly during the holidays. I'm not going to have any cookies or anything. That's not realistic. But some of the reasons to avoid overdoing is that, number one, it really doesn't feel that good. Like a few days ago, I ate some really salty food. And the next morning when I woke up, my fingers were so puffy and stiff, and it didn't feel good. And when we overeat, we can feel bloated. Our digestive system gets out of whack. Our energy levels go down, especially if we're eating things that really aren't very healthy. You know, we might get stomach aches. Another reason is that cognitive dissonance. We know that it's not really good for our bodies, especially when you think about things like blood sugar, insulin resistance, your heart rate variability, inflammation in the body. So then you sort of know that you're really not doing yourself any favors, right? When you eat foods that aren't good for you or overeat in general. And then the third reason is, you know, it's really hard to lose weight. It's not fun, right? It's not fun to have to go on a diet or restrict calories and lose weight. So if you can avoid that by not putting on weight over the holidays, then you start the new year, you know, not having to right away think, gosh, I put on 5 pounds or 10 pounds over the holidays.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to remember as going the opposite way, right? So I know I've personally done this. I know others have told me they've done this, is that I've already gone down that hill. I'll start after the new year, right? And the next thing you know, you don't notice yourself gaining the weight, right? It takes forever to get that weight off. But next thing you know, you've gained 5-10 pounds and it's like that. And whereas if you wait, I'll wait. Yeah, I ate a lot at Thanksgiving and I had all those leftovers that I brought home from my sister's house. I'll just keep eating them. I'll just wait till after the new year. That's what, 6+ weeks. And in 6 weeks, you can do a lot of damage.
You really can. And, you know, for people who have health conditions like diabetes, this actually can become a dangerous time of the year. And you can actually do some pretty serious and even lasting damage to your body if you're not careful about what you eat and drink over this extended period of time.
Yeah. And I think that you're saying is getting in that good mindset. I know when I went to my sister's for Thanksgiving, and when she left, she goes, well, you brought this pie. Don't you want to take it back with you? And I said, nope, that's why I brought it. I don't need it in my house. If it's there, I will eat it. But if it's not, I don't think about it. I don't think about going out and getting myself a pie. And if it's there, guess what? I'll just take that pie and a fork and I'll go sit on the couch and binge watch as I binge eat.
Yes. And it happens so easily, doesn't it? And the next thing you know, it's gone. But you're right, and that's your mindset, and that's part of just knowing yourself and understanding yourself.
Yes. And
And
I
that's
think, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say that kind of gets into some of the strategies that we'll talk about a little bit later, in terms of knowing if you are someone who can moderate, or if you're someone who, like me, I don't have the moderation gene in my body. And you just knowing that about yourself can be really, really helpful. But
Yeah.
getting into the mindset, because, you know, I really do think that one of the ways to get yourself into a good mindset and to set yourself up for mindful eating over the holidays, is really limiting some of your social media exposure. And the reasons for that are really well known. In 10 minutes of scrolling, you are subjected to more ads than you would be in 2 or 3 hours of television viewing, right? And this time of the year, all those ads are depicting really beautiful people, and they're eating, they're drinking, they're buying gifts. And it kind of sets you up for that whole unrealistic image, where you end up feeling sort of stressed out and like everyone else is doing the holiday better than you, having more fun than you. And the other reason maybe to limit some social media is you've seen all of these memes, these jokes about overeating, where I saw one where it said, like I start eating at Halloween and I don't stop until January 2nd. And some of those can kind of set you up to throw in the towel and just give
Yes.
in. You think, well, everyone else is doing it and it's just our culture, just enjoy it.
Yep. Or you see the memes like that say, more around the middle. You never see a fat person get kidnapped, right? Or Santa, don't confuse the fat bank account with the fat body. You got those confused last year, right? It's mindset matters. And so let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about tips and tricks to avoid holiday overeating. But before we go, Linda, tell people how they can reach you.
They can find me at tannerfit.com, my website. I'm on Instagram at Linda Tanner Fit, or they can email me at tannerfit.com.
Wonderful. You are listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any portion of today's episode, you can catch it on getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe online to receive the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. Go to getrootedradio.com. So during the first segment, we talked about mindful eating and why we may not be so mindful while eating. But how do we avoid that holiday overeating? So Linda, where do we start? We left off at the kind of mindset. So start there.
Yeah, I would suggest that people adopt a mindset, and there's several different mindset approaches that you can take. One that one of my clients said to me was, Thanksgiving is just one day. Christmas is one day. New Year's is one day. So she's not giving into that seasonal, this is a whole long season of overeating and overindulgence. All of those holidays are really just one day. Another kind of a mindset that you can approach is to say to yourself that food is not a reward for exercise, and exercise is not a punishment for eating. So really giving yourself a little bit of grace going into the season and taking a really balanced approach. But I think that my favorite is just that my number one goal, is to take care of my body and to feel good, which for me means energetic. It means I'm sleeping well. It means I feel balanced physically and emotionally. So adopt a mindset for the season. And then, when you think about tips and tricks, I break it down into seasonal strategies. So overall strategies that span the season, and then situational strategies. So overall strategies for the season. The most important one, I think, is to make your first meal of the day something really wholesome, something good. And, I'm not saying that people need to start having breakfast early in the morning, but whenever you break your fast, whatever your first meal is, whether it's at 5 a.m. or you don't eat until noon, just make that something really, really good for you. The other seasonal strategy is to really get your fiber intake up. Most Americans do not get nearly enough fiber in the diet. And you really want to try to get it from whole foods to get the most benefit, not from supplements or bars. I mean, there's nothing wrong every now and then with having a little bit of fiber, a fiber drink, a Metamucil, something like that. But you really want to try to get it from foods. And this is going to help you to feel full, and it'll keep your digestive system just really running all throughout the season. The other strategy that you might want to consider is making your meals at home special and wholesome. Okay, so things like eating by candlelight or just maybe by the light of your Christmas tree, if you have a Christmas tree in your house. I like to create what I call my light and bright menu. It's a menu, a day of food that balances me after a day of indulgence. So it's foods and meals that are light, but that really pick me up and feel really good. Playing music, creating your own holiday soundtrack. And it doesn't have to be Christmas songs. It can be whatever kind of music really puts you into a good state of mind and a good, happy place. And then kind of to your point, create some traditions that aren't about eating and drinking. Another seasonal strategy is to decrease or just don't increase your alcohol consumption over the holidays. Lots of reasons for that. And then keep exercising. If you have an exercise routine, stick with it, but don't punish yourself for overeating with over-exercising. That's just really never a good idea. And it kind of defeats the whole purpose of exercise being something that makes you feel good, right?
Yes. I love the idea about, setting the mood, as you said. I've been trying to do that more because when you're working, you tend to, you're eating at your desk. You're not stepping away if you have like a desk job. And I've been trying to step away, or being single and no kid at home, I've tended to maybe eat in front of the TV. And then you're not enjoying your food as much, right? You're not really paying attention and being mindful of what you're eating. You just spent all this time cooking it, and you're not paying attention to the smell. You're not, enjoying it. So I've been trying to sit at the table, right? Sit at the table and making it fun, right? I remember when you were a kid and you're having a bowl of cereal, you would read the back of the cereal box. So I try to have, what are the things that I've wanted to read throughout the day, and just little printouts of them to sit and have the candles going, have maybe some oil in the background, right? So just have that and sit and enjoy and take my time. Because I can't believe how fast I've eaten something when I'm in front of the TV. Like, wait,
where did it go?
Where did my food go? And if you take that time, you actually got a chance for it to digest. If you shovel it in your mouth, you're still hungry because your body hasn't caught up with you yet.
Exactly. It takes about 10 minutes for your body to catch up and for you to really feel, satisfied from what you've eaten. But I liked a couple of things that you said. And one was, you said you took the time to cook your meal. And that honestly, that's one of the best things that people can do to preserve their diet and their nutrition over the holidays is to cook at home, right? If you can avoid going out, going to fast food, going to restaurants, or buying a lot of processed foods, you're doing yourself a huge favor. The food is just going to be so much better for you when you cook it yourself at home. And then you also said that you sit down with a printout of something that you've been wanting to read, which means that you're not staring at your phone or your tablet while you're eating, right? You're actually reading something. And it sounds a little bit silly, but sitting down at the table really does make a difference.
It does.
Your whole body just slows down when you do that.
My dog is now my kid, which of course my kid gives me a hard time all the time about. He's like, I think I've been replaced by the dog. And I said, well, you have, I'm sorry, you have been replaced by the dog. But even this morning, because I've been trying to fast for longer in the morning, so I'll have just either a decaffeinated tea, or I have just a hot water with a lemon. So I put whipped cream in a mug and set him up in the chair, and he was sitting across from me while I was drinking. But I sat, right? I didn't do it while I was on my computer responding to emails. doing my social media posts or anything like that. I actually just sat and enjoyed the cup of tea. And I noticed just a difference, that I felt more relaxed. I was more mindful in that moment, which led to being mindful the rest of the day and everything I did. And, those tips and tricks that you listed out, those are strategies, not just for the season. I mean, those are things that they're simple enough that you can implement every day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they can definitely become just a part of an overall healthy lifestyle and healthy nutrition plan that people can adopt. Now, for some of the situations that you get into over the holidays, you really do need to know if you are that moderator style or abstainer style. Okay. For some people like me, it's easier for me to just not have any cookies at all. I know that I can't eat one. If you can moderate, and that's great, then you should eat the foods that you like over the holidays. Just don't eat a lot of it, and have really small portions of foods that are going to raise your blood sugar. That is key. When you're looking at that buffet table, you're looking at the dinner, identify the kinds of foods, the refined carbs, the sweets, the alcohol. Those are going to raise your blood sugar. You really want to keep those foods to very, very small portions and have complex carbohydrates, proteins, and healthy fats as much as possible. Then waiting 10 minutes, have a big glass of water and wait 10 minutes before you decide you're going to go back for seconds. Other things that people may be familiar with: don't go to the mall hungry, because the smell of the pizza and the Cinnabon is just going to suck you in. If you do go to a potluck, bring something that's really wholesome. Chances are there's going to be somebody else there that really appreciates that. And if not, then fine. You know that you have something that you've brought that's really healthy. And then also taking a good brisk walk after your meals. It's going to help your body to start breaking down and using all of that fuel. And if you did eat sugary foods, that walk is going to help your body to bring the blood sugar levels down.
No, and I think that's a great idea about bring something that you quote unquote can eat, right? And I think that is a good tip. And I don't say deprive yourself, but I know if the more you think of something you can't have, the more I wanted it. My son was allergic to peanuts and tree nuts, and I rarely eat very many nuts and peanuts now, because now he can have them. But when he couldn't, I wanted them. So my desk was full of them. So the more you think you can't have something, the more you want it, right? I think that's human.
Yeah, there really shouldn't be any forbidden foods. That's just not realistic. It's not healthy. But there just needs to be sort of the recognition of the impact it's going to have on your body, and just trying to really sort of limit it, enjoy it, savor it. You don't have to eat the whole thing.
Well, good. So remember, those are tips and tricks, not only to use for the holidays, but every season of the year. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about healthy eating habits. Before we go, Linda, tell folks how they can reach you.
They can email me at tannerfit@outlook.com. They can find me on Instagram at LindaTannerFit, or they can go to my website, tannerfit.com.
Wonderful. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode or previous episodes, sign up for helpful tips, and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. We welcome back our guest, Linda Tanner. Thank you so much for being with us, Linda.
Thank you for having me, Erica.
So we've been talking about mindless eating and how to turn it into more mindful eating. Just like a regular workout regimen, establishing healthy eating habits is just important, if not more so, I would say, right, Linda?
Yeah, absolutely.
After all, you cannot work off bad eating habits. So as much as you try, if you're eating nothing but Big Macs or Whoppers or, Wendy's Deluxes, you're not going to be able to work that off, and you're going to have other health problems. So in this segment, we really want to talk about healthy eating habits and how do you make that a habit? So How do you do it?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics because I think that in a lot of ways, diet has become a 4-letter word in our culture. But if you think about what it means, it just means this is how I feed myself. And the really great thing is that we all get to choose a feeding style that works just for us, that's unique to us, to our needs, and to our tastes. And, everyone's got their favorite foods, and, something that I think is fantastic, you might think is disgusting, and vice versa, right? So everyone's diet is going to be really unique. And so what I like to call it, instead of a diet, I call it my nutrition protocol, right? And I've worked out a nutrition protocol over the years that works for me, and it changes. It changes from year to year and season to season. It's not static. It's always evolving. But my guidelines for a good nutrition protocol is that you need one that includes all of the macronutrients, proteins, fats, carbs. This is not going to be exclusionary. You need to get at least 25 grams of fiber per day, again, from food, preferably not just from supplements. Minimal amounts of processed foods. You want to try to consume as many unrefined whole foods as possible, and food that meets your fluctuating energy needs throughout your day. So those are just some general guidelines for developing your protocol that works for you. And then what I suggest to my clients is that they write that down. I say, this is my nutrition protocol. This is how I feed myself. And then create checklists to remind yourself of this protocol that you've adopted for yourself until it does become a habit. And this could be things as simple as just putting notes on your fridge, putting something on the pantry door, putting notes on your phone, or you could be doing something like using MyFitnessPal, and it's got a reminder feature that will remind you to log what you've eaten. And also using MyFitnessPal or other diet trackers, not just to record what you did eat, but to plan what you're going to eat, because you can plug your meals into your fitness tracker in advance and then look at the bottom line and go, oh, that's 5,000 calories. I guess I better remove a few things out of here. And using those trackers actually does help you to develop the habit. And after a while, you start to learn and you start to develop some patterns because it teaches you the value of the different foods that you're eating. And then a practical tip for this as well is to find and practice and prepare. Find 2 or 3 really wholesome but really delicious recipes, things that you love, right? And practice making them so that they become a part of your repertoire. So on a busy night or on a weekend, with, let's say during the holidays, for example, you come home from shopping, you're exhausted, you're tired. You need to have something that you can really pretty quickly whip together, something that's easy for you to make. And so you want to have a couple of these recipes in your back pocket.
And I love how you call it a nutrition protocol. I mean, it sounds so fancy and I can see some people might think that's intimidating, but I love it because that diet, it is a 4-letter word, right? When people say I'm on a diet, then they're like, why do you need to be on a diet? And it's, if you make it part of your lifestyle, it's not a chore. And I mean, personally, when you were talking about using like MyFitnessPal or another food tracker, you think you're getting enough of something until you put it in there. I've talked to you about this. I thought I was getting enough protein until I really put all my stuff in there. And I was like, whoa, I am way off on my protein. And so you don't realize it, or you don't, if at first you're new to some of this and you're measuring, like when you make something, actually measure. What is a teaspoon? Are you using a teaspoon or are you using a tablespoon? Because that makes, I had a friend who's like, well, I eat well, I may have tuna. And I'm like, and what do you put in your tuna? Oh, well, I put this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, and how much of that? Well, I don't put very much. And I'm like, well, show me. And she was putting like a whole tablespoon in. I'm like, okay, so if you look at that, that's how much that is. And it was funny. She's like, oh, I said, so what you think is healthier? I'm having a salad for lunch. What is in your salad? How much dressing? Are you actually having dressing for lunch with a little bit of salad? But those sort of tools help you make sure that you are getting what you need.
They really do. Yeah. And when I first started using MyFitnessPal back in 2014, I thought I was eating a really healthy diet. And it wasn't that it was super unhealthy, but I kind of had the same epiphany as you. I was getting a lot more fat than I thought I was, and a lot less protein than I thought I was. So it does sort of help to train you over the years when you use those tools. And, people sort of brush off maybe the difference between a teaspoon and a tablespoon. Okay, well, that's 3 times as much. It's 3 times as much. And that may not, even that might not seem like a big deal. But just think of it this way. If you went to the store and something said $10, but then when you went to go pay for it, they said that'll be $30. There's no way you would do that. You would say, no, it clearly says $10 here. So, maybe finding a metaphor that works for you to help to enforce, just keeping an eye on portion sizes.
Oh yeah. And they add up. They add up. If you have
yes.
while it may be only 3 times as much, if you had it 1 time a week, 1 time a month, but if you're having something like that, like cream in your coffee, right?
Oh.
If you're doing that and you're doing it 3 times a day, because maybe you have 3 cups of coffee, and then you're doing that times 5 to 7 days a week, that adds up real quick.
And, the thing to keep in mind with a lot of these examples of salad dressing, mayonnaise, creamer in your coffee is quality really makes a huge difference here. And the issue with those 3 things specifically is not necessarily that they have fat, but the type of fat that they might have, and the fact that most bottled salad dressings and creamers are loaded with sugar. They're also loaded with gums and emulsifiers, which in some cases have been shown to be endocrine disruptors. And so if you want to, put some olive oil on your salad or make a nice creamy dressing, that's fine. You're far better off making something yourself than buying a bottled salad dressing. And I honestly think that creamer has crack in it, because it took me like a year to get myself off the creamer wagon. And I won't go back, because it'll be like a week and I'll be like chugging that stuff right out of the bottle, right? It's the sugar in it that makes it have that impact.
But all these little steps that we're talking about, using a tracker, especially in the beginning, because then you see what's happening. It all leads to the habits. And, what do they say? It takes at least 21 days to create a habit, sometimes longer, depending on how bad you were maybe previously.
Well, when I first started using MyFitnessPal, I made a rule that I would not actually eat my food until I had logged it. So I would prepare my meal, and then before I could sit down to eat it, I would log everything into MyFitnessPal. And over time, that just became a habit. I just do it now without even thinking about it. And I love, and I'm not paid by MyFitnessPal or any of these trackers, but I really do love the way that they help you to realize everything that you are consuming and what nutrients you're getting. And a lot of people think it's a real pain to track. First, I'll say it really doesn't take that much time once you make it a habit. It's a few minutes a day. And secondly, if you went to a financial advisor and said, I'm having trouble with my expenses, I don't know where my money goes, the first thing they would say is, show me your checkbook or show me your banking app. And if you weren't keeping a budget and you weren't keeping track of what you were spending, that's what they would say to you. Well, you have to track what you spend. I can't help you if you don't track what you spend, right? And it's really the same concept when it comes to what we're putting in our bodies, except I would say it's almost even more important.
No, and that is an excellent example. And I think when people start looking at it like that, what you eat, the way you fuel your body, just the same way as the way what you watch, what you say, what you're around, that all puts into your wellness. So if you work out really well and you have a regular routine and you do all that, start thinking that same way with mindful eating and how you eat and how you fuel your body, because that is just as important as who you're around, what you watch, what you wouldn't do this for your child, or I should say, you do it for your child. So why don't you do it for yourself?
Do it for yourself.
If you're a parent, right? You're not going to just completely excuse my language, feed your kid crap every day. You want to give him vegetables or her vegetables. You want to make sure they're eating right. Give yourself that same sort of appreciation and love and grace.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the fact of bringing grace into it, because the idea here, again, it's not perfection, and nobody is, and I'm not. And if you saw me on Thanksgiving Day, you'd be horrified. Probably most Americans, right? So it really is not about being perfect. And I also just want to reiterate the when you talk about putting things into your body that are going to nourish you, really, that's how I like to think about it, is how is this going to make me feel? And is it going to make me feel really good and energized and like I'm nurturing and nourishing myself? Or is it going to make me feel 30 minutes from now jittery and just not really good? So
So great tips and tricks. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk about suggestions for a successful 2022 and beyond. Before we go, Linda, tell folks how they can reach you again.
They can find me on my website, tannerfit.com. They can look for me on Instagram at LindaTannerFit, or they can send an email to tannerfit@outlook.com.
Wonderful. This is Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any of the information during the last segments, go to getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for tips and special events, and pricing for upcoming coaching sessions at getrootedradio.com. So Linda, thank you again so much for joining us today and talking about mindful eating. And when we're looking at it, we are very mindless during the holidays, or really during when we're not paying attention to what we're doing, right? That's the whole point of being mindless. But once the holidays are over, then what? Do we revert back to grabbing that bag of chips and eating it on the couch during our favorite show? Or do we binge eat while binge watching a streaming service? What do we do to make 2022 and beyond a success?
Well, I think this is the time to be asking that question, right? Instead of waiting for New Year's Day, start thinking about it now. Give yourself a few weeks to really think it through. And I'm going to say, take a really positive approach and focus on what you will do, what you want to do, instead of what you won't do. It seems like so often our New Year's resolutions are like, I'm going to quit this and I'm going to cut back and I'm going to stop doing that, right? Instead of being maybe more positive. And so I like to think of things that I'm going to do. And number one is just pursuing health, pursuing wholeness, right? So sometimes when it comes to your health and well-being, you have to chase it a little bit, right? It is all about creating the habits and the lifestyle that support that. But especially if you're coming from a place where maybe you haven't been living a super healthy lifestyle, you need to chase it down. You really do have to pursue it. And so decide on some metrics that you want to improve. Okay, now this is taking me back to my years in the business world is, all right, what are the KPIs? What are some metrics that I want to improve? So for a lot of people, it's going to be your blood sugar levels. It's going to be monitoring your blood sugar. It's going to be doing everything that you can to avoid insulin resistance. For some people, it's going to be their cardiovascular health, right? Really improving their heart and their lungs and their vascular system to support endurance. For other people, it's going to be things like movement and flexibility. And there's so many different things that you could focus on, but the idea here is to just pick one or two and say, this is what I'm really going to focus on. And then secondly, along the lines of really being positive, I like to think about nourishing the body instead of depriving the body, instead of depriving yourself. So it's more about adding some healthy foods and recipes into your repertoire. And then this kind of goes back to the mindful eating. Learn to recognize real hunger and then respond with what it is that you really need. So as an example, I think we all know that thirst usually manifests as hunger first. But if you think about it, we have a hunger for variety and novelty. We have a hunger to be comforted and to be nurtured. And so recognizing if you feel hungry, you're You're opening the fridge for no reason. You find yourself in the kitchen. How did I get here? Right? Stop and check in with yourself. And what are you really hungering for? Are you hungering for a distraction from a stressful day of work? Are you hungering for a hug, for some way to comfort yourself, and recognize that, and then address that need in a way that maybe doesn't involve eating.
I love that. That is so true. Are you eating out of boredom? Are you eating out of loneliness? Are you eating out of stress, right? What is, or are you really just hungry? What is it? And I love that technique, that approach.
A lot of people eat as a way to procrastinate. And I've recognized this in myself, that there will be times when I'll be working on something difficult, and what I really need to do is double down and focus, but I really don't want to. I really want to put it off for later. My stomach will start to growl like, I'm starving. I need to eat something right now. And I know that's absolutely not the case. So learning to recognize hunger. And then, if possible, learning how to indulge without overindulging. And so my boyfriend and I did an example of this over the weekend. He had made some cookies. He's a great cook. He put them in the freezer. He baked them and he put them in the freezer. And then we wanted a little something sweet, and he got 2 cookies out, microwaved them for like 15, 20 seconds. And we had that. And it's like, are you really going to go back and get more out and microwave more? Well, maybe, but at least that slows it down. Right. And it gives you that opportunity to go, no, I really don't need another cookie. So, yeah.
Makes you think about it. It makes you think about, do I really need it?
Yeah. Do I really need it? Sometimes, I'll say to myself, if you're hungry and if you're craving something, just have it. It goes back to your point about forbidden fruit. Usually then you just end up obsessing over it. Yeah. So say, all right, I am actually hungry, or I just really want this, and then treat yourself, but do it in a way that you're not overindulging. So you're not eating the whole box of cookies or the whole bag of chips. And then something else that I like to do every December is I set myself up on 12-week cycles, right, for the coming year. And I established 12-week cycles for my exercise. So every 12 weeks, the focus is going to shift. Cardio is going to be the focus. Then 12 weeks later, strength is going to be the focus. And then mobility is going to be the focus. And you can do the same thing, setting yourself up with these 12-week cycles for nutrition. And then after each cycle, you can just add in a new component. So as an example, you might say, for the first 12 weeks, I'm going to have a goal of eating 5 whole fruits or vegetables a day, at least 5 days a week. And then you spend the 12 weeks building that habit, working that out, really getting that into your day-to-day. Then for your next 12-week cycle, you can say, all right, in addition to the above, I'm now going to not eat after 9 o'clock at night. Then you work on that for the next 12 weeks. And so you're just sort of layering in new habits and giving yourself that time to really make it a part of your life and to start feeling normal, Well,
and you don't get overwhelmed then, right? That's where people try to do New Year's resolutions, and they're like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And then they're so overwhelmed that they quit everything. And if you do, as you said, layer those in, one becomes, okay, now it's a habit. I've been doing it for a while. It's routine. And now I'm adding something else, and it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Right. You're just layering, something positive on top of something else positive. And back to not getting overwhelmed, I really like to keep in mind the 80-20 rule, because it works. And if you try to live a perfectly healthy lifestyle 24/7, 365, it's not realistic, and it's not really that fun either. But if you eat healthy and you exercise about 80% of the time, stick with those routines, develop those habits, have the discipline. 80% of the time, 20% of the time you can relax. You can give yourself a little bit of grace. Again, it doesn't mean you eat the whole fridge, but it just means you don't kick yourself for having a dessert, right?
Right.
And you just, if you, like for some people, myself, Monday through Friday is my 80, right? Monday through Friday, I'm pretty strict. I don't go out. I don't I don't have drinks. I really watch what I eat. On the weekends, I don't freak out. I don't just go to town and eat everything in sight, but I just kind of relax and I just don't worry about it. And if I miss a workout, I'm not going to worry about it because the 80-20 really, really works over the long haul.
I love those. You have been wonderful to have on the show, Linda, and I really appreciate all the tips and tricks. So if you missed any portion of today's show, make sure you listen to the replay because you'll have some real gems that you can carry on into the 2022 year and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you. This has really been a lot of fun, as always.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's episode or you want to listen again, go to getrootedradio.com for the podcast. And don't forget to tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific right here on Transformation Talk Radio. Before I sign off, remember to ask yourself, am I living a rooted life? Am I thriving or merely surviving? If the answer is no, take time to think about what you need to do, then take action to make that answer a yes. One way to take action is to set up your free Empower Hour call with me. No charge, no obligations. Go to getrootedradio.com to find out how I can help you take action. And if you are ready to live, love, and let go, join me in my 12-week signature group coaching series, The Rooted Life. This series will assist you in achieving your goals, whether that is maintaining and not gaining, like we talked about today, and moving forward by letting go of the things that no longer serve you, learning to love yourself and others fully, and living life to its fullest. Go to getrootedradio.com to learn about the 12-week series and to get that free Empower Hour. That's getrootedradio.com. Thank you again for tuning in. Have an amazing day, and I look forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit getrootedradio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on transformationtalkradio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.